Welcome to the Odds Fitness Podcast. I'm Asad Hussain, the founder of Odds Fitness. We at Odds Fitness help individuals maximize their health span and also achieve their true fitness potential. With my formal education in exercise and sports sciences and also in lifestyle and wellness coaching, we bring to you the most data-driven insights from industry experts who specialize in the Asian and the Middle Eastern populations. These experts have significant experience considering our distinctly different variable factors such as genetics, phenotypes, cultural and environmental influences and habits. These factors contribute to the most common and consistent risk factors for lifestyle-related diseases and health and fitness challenges in South Asia and the Middle East. While there is a wealth of data and content available from the West, much of it becomes irrelevant when applied to our context, as the dynamics here are vastly different. So let us begin. Today we have Dr. Sanjay Sachdeva, who is the founder and CEO of Metabalance Healthcare. He specializes in reversing lifestyle diseases, etc. He's also an author. He's written a book called Age is Just a Number. He is a PhD in nutritional sciences with over 35 years of experience, and he integrates traditional and modern wellness practices to address the root cause of a disease. With your extensive background in both functional and bioregulatory medicine, what led you to focus on lifestyle-related diseases, and how does this approach sort of differ from conventional treatments?
My background is not a medical background. I'm not a medical doctor. I am an MBA in healthcare management, and I managed Batra Hospital and a couple of other hospitals for 20 years from the Ambuja Group. And so I was CEO of the Ambuja Group hospitals for 10 years, and 10 years with Batra Hospitals. So I was managing allopathic hospitals for a long time, primarily running them as profit centers. And what drove me to this side of functional and bioregulatory medicine is when I saw the futility of that I'm actually hurting people and helping them, and I was not able to get people well. And those commercial hospitals are run more like profit centers. So I got disappointed with the whole concept of modern hospitals, and that led me to start reading about naturopathy, functional medicine, Ayurveda, homeopathy, and other natural methods of healing. However, with more toxic attacks that we are having these days on ourselves, these old sciences were not sufficient enough to cater to the diseases that are currently facing us. So it had to get into a more scientific approach, like you used that word many times. It needed more modern science to prove how we can address modern disease. And that's why, while the tenets and principles of bioregulatory medicine and functional medicine are taken from the ancient sciences, but the adaptation and the manifestation is done towards modern science by using modern science, modern scientific tools of analysis and investigation. We use them to develop tools for healing.
Right. So a very, let's say, quick question on that. How do you deal with skeptics? Let's say, because there's a lot of people who might not believe in certain treatments like Ayurveda or homeopathy. Let's say if somebody questions you on that account and they ask what evidence might be associated with such treatments, though they're still there, and I'm sure they're there for good reason. So how do you approach?
So first of all, it's easier to approach that in India, because India has traditionally been a country where Ayurveda and the old sciences took root thousands of years ago. So it's deeply rooted into our DNA to first go for they call it alternate treatment. I don't. I consider it as mainline treatment. For chronic lifestyle disease, all the other sciences are put together and they are mainline treatment. For emergency services and for emergency like a heart attack or you get into an accident, modern hospitals are the best solution.
Correct.
So there are skeptics, not just in Ayurveda, but also in the current form of medicine that we are doing. And that is why functional medicine took birth about 20 years ago.
Right.
And as I said, the principles have been taken from Ayurveda, the ancient sciences.
Right.
But the adaptation has been vetted by modern universities like Harvard, Stanford, Mayo Clinic, John Hopkins. These all modern hospitals across the world
Right.
have vetted and done scientific studies and research on this form of medicine, which is also called root cause medicine.
Right.
So you go to the root cause of the disease rather than symptomatic relief.
Right.
And when you investigate to the root cause, you will eliminate from the root cause. That's how the skeptics are dealt with, because you explain to them that there is nothing wrong with modern medicine. There's nothing wrong with allopathic medicine. It's just that it is very good for treating symptoms. If you have a headache, it's a good idea to take a pill to treat the headache for the moment.
Right.
But it's not a cure. You have to get to the root cause of why the headache is happening, what stress is causing it, and what kind of environmental factors have caused that, what kind of heavy metal toxicity has caused that, what kind of thoughts or perceptions have caused the headache, what kind of food has caused the headache. What you have to go to the ultimate cause of why the headache is happening, rather than popping in a pill every day.
Right.
So there's a difference in approach. It's not that skeptics will understand that once they are made to understand that we are not doing something unscientific, we are just having a different approach to things.
Correct. So just to, for context for our audience, what sort of diseases would you say are, let's say, good to go with allopathic practices or conventional medicine? And what kind of diseases would you say should be, let's say, intervene with practices which are similar to yours?
So 85% of any country's national health budget,
Right.
from the United States to India, is spent on chronic lifestyle illnesses.
Correct.
Which are a result of, I would say, misusing the epigenetics to spoil the gene expression.
Right.
And that's why you get into those lifestyle diseases.
Right. I just want to add one thing, just so that our audience knows what epigenetics are. They're basically environmental factors that contribute to how your genes are expressed, essentially switched on and off. And those are usually reversible. They're not genetic, and they can be passed down, but in the sense that they're not like set genes, which are like genes are inheritable. Epigenetics are something that you can, let's say, fix if there's a problem in your body with environment, let's say certain lifestyle changes and environments, etc.
Just to make it easier for the audience to understand, epigenetics, genetics are the gun and epigenetics are the trigger.
Correct.
You pull the trigger when you want to, and then the gun fires. Or if it's a CD, a blank CD, that is your genes. You inherited with the CD.
Yeah.
But the music that you record on it is up to you.
Correct.
And then you can play the tune that you want to hear. So epigenetics is that. So you cannot change the CD that you're born with,
Right.
but you can change the music that you record on it.
Correct.
So that's easier for the audience.
Of course.
So
I'll use that analogy next time. Right. So coming back to our question, which are the diseases that...
Yes, so as I was saying, that 80-85% disease are lifestyle illnesses which are facing most people. Today, more than 80% people are faced with lifestyle illnesses which happen because of misusing our life that we are born with. We misuse our day-to-day activity. We misuse our diet. We misuse our sleep. We misuse the word stress as it comes to us, and we are, in a way, adapting our lives to modern toxic environments. And that is what causes lifestyle disease to happen, such as thyroid, diabetes, obesity, ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, hypertension, sleep, etc. These are all some examples of lifestyle disease.
Did you also say OCD?
Yes.
Okay.
Obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a mental illness. Mental well-being will occupy about 50-60% of the modern lifestyle diseases.
Right.
There are now 610 plus mental well-being medicines available in modern medicine.
Right.
None of them work.
Because the brain is so easily misunderstood.
Yes. So to you, what works is, we'll talk about that in terms of epigenetics. But yes, so the diseases that can be addressed, I would qualify this question into two parts. One part is that every lifestyle illness has got a beginning a midpoint and an end point. The beginning point, you come to this form of medicine, which is a natural form of medicine, be it any of these old ancient sciences or the modern version of the ancient sciences, which is functional medicine. At the beginning stage, almost every disease from cancer to posture management, to obesity, to depression, to anxiety, to hypertension, to thyroid. In the beginning stage, all disease can come to this site, except emergencies. So if you are caught in a fire in a building and you jump off the 4th floor and you break your legs, obviously you have to go to a hospital and I can't do anything about it.
Right.
But if there's a period of time over the last 15, 20 years that you've not stepped properly, you've not exercised properly, you've not, eaten the right foods, you've not had the right thoughts, you've not meditated correctly, then obviously you will develop over a period of time a thing called silent inflammation. And this builds up over time. It does not make any noise. It does not make itself apparent, but it builds up slowly. These diseases, when you come to a functional medicine side of the story, in the beginning stage of any of these lifestyle illnesses, then all diseases are qualified to come into this. In the mid stage, you have to do a combination of integrative medicine. So you do some modern medicine, you start with that to address the fire.
Right.
And to address the inflammation. So if the inflammation markers are over the roof, so if your HbA1c is 20 and your fasting blood sugar is 450,
Yes.
then obviously you have to start with allopathic medicine. Then you move on to this form of natural medicine
Right.
in the mid stage. In the end stage, it's let's say it's metastatic cancer, or if it's 4th stage cancer, or if it's Ebola virus or some sort of thing that it has gone to your brain and it's a serious stage or it's a terminal illness, you're the last stage, or you have to go to allopathic modern medicine.
Or it's an acute representation of the disease.
Yeah,
Right.
then you have to start with that, and then probably then this alternative medicine, or this what I call mainstream medicine, or what I would call natural medicine or functional medicine, is used as a supportive therapy. Then it's not a treating therapy then,
Right.
because then it's very hard to reverse stage 4 cancer, for example. It is just to talk of any terminal illness of lifestyle disease.
Right.
So all disease can come to this site depending on the stage of the disease.
Right. Right. Would you also say that aging is a disease?
Yes, aging is a sin.
It's the same.
And there's a chapter in my book which says, so aging is a sin. It happens to us. See, getting old is optional. Aging is not.
Right.
So you will get older every day. I mean, you will age every day, but feeling old is in your mind.
Yeah, because I see a lot of individuals, even my age, I'm 34. And when I look at their, let's say, health markers, etc., all of that, even the way they live their lives, and small hiccups start to pop, like, let's say, fatty liver or insulin insensitivity, elevated HbA1c, all of that. And they somehow assume it to be normal aging. And I always tell them, that's what my fight has been for the last 18 years, that, it's not. And it's actually incorrect, because if you will see how maybe a lot of Europeans are, where they have a very active lifestyle as compared to a lot of Indians, and a very carbohydrate-rich diet in India, especially the kind of foods we eat, and a huge vegetarian population as well. So you see that a lot of people have, that's why India is the diabetic capital of the country. And they automatically assume that it's something that just has to come. And I've also heard from a lot of people that type 2 diabetes is inherited, where when I tell them that, it's far from it. It's not at all.
In 1777, there was no diabetes in India. There were only 3 cases.
Wow.
There was one sugar mill, and sugar could be bought only from a pharmacy.
Right.
So you needed a prescription to go to a pharmacy, and then you'd buy sugar.
Really?
That is how it was in the British times. Then the British brought in sugar cane, and they developed sugar. And today there are 4,900 sugar mills in India. And average consumption of sugar per person is more than 75 kilos a year.
Right.
And at that time, it used to be 250 grams a year.
Right.
And we were dependent more on dates and honey and jaggery and natural forms of sugar.
Right.
Unfortunately, we misused our bodies. We overloaded our pancreas with sugar. And that's why it's become like a drug now. It's in my view, it should be banned. It should go back to the old stage where you need a pharmaceutical prescription to go and buy sugar rather than just being...
or be taxed more on sugar like Singapore or something.
London is also doing it now.
Right.
Some of the drinks are taxed.
Right.
And they have sugar.
Correct.
So sugar is actually a major culprit, and diabetes is prevalent in almost 16% of India. Today, more than 80 crore Indians will have diabetes or pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, one of these three.
Right.
If they have insulin resistance, they will develop into pre-diabetes. If they have pre-diabetes, they will develop into diabetes or sooner or later.
Right.
And as far as fatty liver is concerned, 1 in 1.5 in Delhi have fatty liver.
Right.
1 in 2 all over India have fatty liver.
Right.
So, and 9% of Indians are deficient in D3.
Right.
I have almost 150 to 200 patients a month, and 190 out of 200 are deficient in D3.
Right.
They are not, and at B12, of course, almost 75% people are deficient. So we're not looking into the basic universal cause of disease.
Correct.
And therefore, we will not address it. We are addressing the symptoms. That's what I started with.
Correct.
We're not addressing the root cause.
Correct. Coming back to aging, like you said, it's a sin. What is your take on metformin being used as an anti-aging drug by many? Because, that's what the word is on the street, that, it's the only drug that has been, let's say, researched over a very long period of time.
Yes.
And it's shown some promise. When my doctor, I'm not going to name him, he recommended me to take metformin. I said, can I go the other way and just not have those many carbohydrates, or as refined sources of carbohydrates? So then he said, okay, yeah. But I was just thinking that how many people did he recommend it to? So what's your take on it?
So there is always two angles or two perceptions or two sides to every story. If you want to lose weight, you can go the Ozempic route, which has become the most valuable company in the world today,
Right.
or the second most valuable company after Apple.
Right.
And you can go the route of losing weight naturally.
Right.
You can tape up your mouth and eat the right things. So what actually matters is what is at the end of your fork,
Right.
which will determine how obese you are. Similarly, if you want to slow down the aging process and slow down cell senescence, there is a shortcut way of taking or starting with metformin and increasing sugar metabolism, or the metabolization of your sugar can be speeded up with having metformin, or you can opt for berberine and opt for easier methods and natural herbs to do the same process of metabolization of sugars and to digest sugars, or to strengthen your pancreas and to make it so strong that they release insulin only when there is an intake of a sugary substance, because the pancreas are a very dumb part of the body. They do not distinguish between sugar-free Coke and sugar Coke, and they do not distinguish between honey and jaggery and sugar. It's all the same. They will release insulin irrespective.
Right.
So they think it's all sugar. Anything that's sweet, whether it's mango or it is green grapes or it is red apple or banana or white rice or sugar, they will perceive it as sugar.
And is it perceived like that because of the brain, or is it perceived like that because of the signaling that
it's a sodium overload.
Okay.
It's like if you are putting 21 people in a Maruti 800 car, at one point of time it will give up.
Right.
So that's what insulin resistance is all about. If you overload the pancreas so then what happens is that after a certain point, everything is then perceived as sugar, because the pancreas become tired of producing insulin. And they'll stop producing, and they'll say, well, at one point in time, they say, no more.
Right.
We are done.
That's right.
That's why you have to take insulin shots, because then you don't produce insulin anymore.
Correct.
So it depends upon how you treat yourself. Again, coming back to aging, I'm 64, but my biological age is 42.
No.
So I managed to reverse my pancreas, my kidneys, my lungs, arterial health, blood health,
Right.
and back to about 22 years, reverse in about 21, 22 years.
Yeah.
I had not used metformin in my life to slow down the process or to increase the metabolism.
Right.
My metabolism is in the middle range.
Right.
My visceral fat is 5 on a scale of 1:9.
Right.
So if your visceral fat is low and your body fat percentage is below 20%,
Right.
you're good to go. I mean, you don't need metformin to slow down the aging process. There are many other ways of doing it.
What would you say are the key therapeutic practices with somebody with diabetes or somebody with insulin resistance from where you come from?
So primarily you start from the diet and the lifestyle, and that starts from sleep.
Right.
Sleep is the most important question we ask. And
Which a lot of people tend to overlook.
60-70% people are not sleeping properly.
Yeah.
They,
I realized that I wasn't.
yeah, a lot of people who come and say that they're sleeping 8 hours, they sleep at 1 o'clock at night and they get up at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they're putting 8 hours sleep. But that's not the point. They are not following the circadian clock at all.
Right.
So the biological clock with which we were born with, and 40,000 years ago it was set, is completely thrown out of the window.
Right.
We are not getting the right sleep.
Right.
So, and the right quality of REM sleep. We have 5 sleep cycles in the night.
Right.
And each one is 90 minutes long. And in that 90 minutes, if we don't get that 20 minutes of REM sleep, we will not recuperate, we will not rejuvenate ourselves, and we will not recover. So sleep is the first thing to start with in terms of diabetes. The second part is, of course, thoughts, mind, which very few people pay attention to. I pay a lot of attention to the mind. All my patients are made to go through a cognitive behavior therapy questionnaire in which we assess the mind. We also do a bioresonance test on people where we measure the chakras, and we measure the aura, and we measure thoughts, number of thoughts per minute. And we do a mind test to understand if this person is going through stress, and we measure the organ energy. This was developed by Russian scientists. Again, it's rated by the Russian FDA, but the US FDA does not recognize it. Not that I have great respect for the US FDA, but it's a scientific test developed by a very famous Russian scientist who developed a camera which actually could photograph the aura, and we never actually believed that we have an aura. But the energy body does exist outside the physical body, and that energy body is determined by our thoughts and by the way we think and by the fears, anxieties, doubts that we get. So we measure that first to understand. And I believe this because we use a modern medical tool called the CGM,
right,
which is one of the most important discoveries or the inventions of modern time.
Constant glucose monitor.
Continuous glucose monitor. Yeah, constant glucose monitor. And then you see that this person is eating all the right foods, sleeping at the right 8 hours of sleep or whatever, he's getting good quality sleep, but he's stressed. And he's wondering why his sugar is going up. In the morning, he wakes up with 150, fasting blood sugar, and BP sugar is 220.
Right.
And he's not eating anything wrong. He's doing the right exercises. But then when we measure the fact that he's stressed, he shouts at his staff or his wife or his children 10 times a day. And every time he shouts, he gets these angry thoughts of lack of forgiveness and anger.
Right.
His sugar shoots up.
Because
That measure shoots up.
I'm assuming cortisol would lead to increased
to lead to increase of blood sugar.
Right.
So thoughts, emotions, sleep. These are things we assess first. Then they come to food.
Right.
So what are you eating? As I said, a lot matters at the end of the fork. What are you eating? And if you have diabetes, you have diabetes for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on how long you've had it for, and what kind of medication you've been on the rest of those 15, 20 years. It depends on that. So we start with the food that you're eating.
Right.
And most of us, as you rightly said, are eating very high carbohydrate diets. We guess how many carbs we need in a day?
I'm assuming 0.
We don't need carbs.
Okay.
So we need fuel in the body to convert it to energy, and that fuel is fat. Most of people in India have been, given this whole education of fat-free diet, fat-free foods, fat-free ice cream, fat-free everything.
Right.
And it's just well, of course, there are wrong types of fat and good types of fat, but the good fats we are not eating in the quest for going on a fat-free fad.
Right.
So we assess the fat intake of a diabetic patient, and mostly we find that people go off fats completely.
Right. Yeah.
They don't eat ghee, they don't eat olive oil, they don't eat nuts and seeds, they don't eat avocados, they don't eat anything that is perceived as fatty foods, they will eat that, and that makes them more prone to diabetes.
So that's weird, because there was this study which compared the Mediterranean diet, which is rich in fats, and that had a significantly better cardiovascular outcome, which, as opposed to a lot of what other people think, that if you have a lot of fats, you will have some sort of cardiovascular disease, etc. It's also the kind of fats you're eating. And the Mediterranean diet is apparently very rich in those kinds of fats that you're talking about. And that was linked to a 30% decrease in cardiovascular related deaths.
Yes, so it lot depends. As I said, the fat is qualifying to what you're having, the right PUFA and BUFA, the right omega-3, the right omega-6.
Right.
EPA, EFA, what are you having exactly? The fat has so many qualifications and so many types of
Right.
So saturated fat, unsaturated fat, all of that, the oils that we're eating.
Correct.
At what temperature you're cooking in. So you could be eating, let's say mustard oil is allowed in our in the treatment, we allow mustard oil. But if you are heating mustard oil to 140 degrees and making pakoras in it, then the mustard oil itself becomes oxidated. So then we don't consider that oil as good oil, because so it's a lot depends upon how you're cooking the fat.
Right.
It's not just about the right fats.
Good.
How you're eating it. If you're eating food too much and you're char grilling it and everything is crispy and nice and like French fries, we allow, for example, sweet potato fries.
Right.
But sweet potato fries are grilled in a aluminium foil,
Right.
and you have very crispy for the sweet potato chips.
Right.
That's not allowed then, because then you're spoiling the same fat which is allowed. A lot depends upon the method of cooking.
Right.
As well.
Right. So, is there anything you would want to add to diabetes after the
Yes, so we do insist on a lot on HIIT, which people are not following and doing.
Yeah, it's also stressful.
In fact, I've just sat with a very big international manufacturer of treadmills,
Right.
where I've insisted upon them to put the HIIT button on the treadmill.
Right.
So that you go on that, you press that button and it automatically goes into this mode
Right.
where it's doing this 15 minutes of exercise.
Correct.
Then, of course, fasting. People ignore fasting a lot. That is a very important part of the diabetes treatment.
Right.
Is fasting. Again, fasting is not just intermittent fasting. It's a very beaten to death word by the nutritionists, also called nutritionists of India.
Right.
We just followed a fad. We read about it. There are 10 types of fasting, from fasting mimicking diet to 2-day fast to OMAD to 1 meal a day to again. So we calculate fasting hours based upon each person's targeted needs.
Right.
I mean, if he's 35 kilos, or if he has 45% body fat and 35 kilos overweight,
Right.
and then he wants to lose 3 kilos a month or 5 kilos a month or 8 kilos a month, what are his targets? What is his height? What is his weight? What is his resting metabolic rate? And what is his basal metabolic rate?
Right.
Based on this, we have a formula that we made ourselves, and we calculate the exact number of hours at which he will enter autophagy. And that's when we start telling him that you need to do 14 hours of fasting.
Is that accurate?
So it works pretty well with most people.
It's a good yardstick.
It's a good yardstick to measure. Also, it's more convincing for the people, because if I just tell everybody 16-8,
Yeah.
then
It could
so
vary.
everybody's saying that we read about it on YouTube and we hear about it everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's so common that what's the scientific logic behind it? I can't stay hungry for more than 12 hours.
And also there would be contraindicated situations.
Yeah,
where,
it depends upon each person. So it's very individual. But yes, fasting is a very important part of. So it's HIIT, fasting, sleep, thoughts, food, fat, all of that part. It's this combination. And then, of course, some supplements that you need.
Right.
And then we also use ozone therapy in diabetes and insulin resistance. We use rectal ozone a lot because it's an antioxidant. And it cleans up the gut microbiome of the lower intestine. If you use a combination of ozone and oxygen and you know the right mixture, then the ozone, which is a toxic substance, toxic gas, actually, we use 1% of ozone and 99% of oxygen at a certain concentration, at a certain flow rate, then we are able to control the health of the microbiome. As you know, today, the microbiome was only discovered 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Until then, nobody knew how to interpret the gut microbiome.
Right.
So that has a big role to play in diabetes or any disease.
Would it also have a negative impact on healthy gut microbiome?
Load oxygen oxygenates because ozone is actually
O3.
O3, so it's a higher grade of oxygen. So if you use it correctly, if you use the pro-oxidant, it's anti-cancer. So it depends if you are using a higher concentration of ozone, a higher concentration of vitamin C intravenous infusions in combination with the ozone therapies, then
You can get away with
you can
certain.
get away with certain things. If you populate the good microbiome with oxygen,
Right.
that, as I said, the 99% oxygen helps the healthy microbiota to stay in diversity. What we are looking for is diversity in the microflora.
Right.
The gut flora has to have more diversity,
Right.
which is what we've now got rid of. We've got no diversity. We've got one type of very clean, clinically hygienic microbiome,
Right.
which is not healthy.
It's not healthy.
So we encourage that oxygen and ozone combination.
Right.
So that's another modality that we use
Right.
for treatment of most diseases, because we detoxify first, then we do enemas to cleanse the gut,
Right.
and in some cases colon washes, and then once we have cleaned out the gut, then we start the treatment.
Would there be any, let's say, negative effects of something like that?
Why don't I counter question you? What about negative effects of anything as simple as an Allegra or a Crocin or paracetamol? Do we even read what is contained in an Estee Lauder cream or a lipstick or a Lancome lipstick? I mean, there is lead in almost every lipstick that you find in the market.
Of course.
So we are putting all sorts of creams, deodorants, perfumes, household chemicals, hair shampoos and body washes, and face creams and sunscreens. And we use all sorts of oils, and we are having gluten-free chips from the market. We don't question what else is contained. We read gluten-free and we pick out the packet of chips.
Right.
We pick up
I
all sorts
question.
of
I question all sorts of things.
so we pick up all sorts of allopathic. And what is medical doctor writes a prescription for you, you will go to a chemist shop and buy the medicine.
Right.
You cannot question the doctor in Max Hospital, why are you giving me this? Because he'll say, I have just 10 minutes for you. I have written this medicine, go to the pharmacist and buy it.
Right.
You cannot question it. But from me, they are questioning, you're questioning what is the side effect that oxygen or ozone can have.
Don't take me that way. And the only reason why I'm asking is so that our audience is educated.
No, I understand that. But I'm also saying it to the audience that instead of questioning that, do your homework, don't trust me, don't trust anybody.
Right.
Today, information is available online. And I mean, you do your homework. All these therapies have got minimalistic side effects.
Right.
If they're used correctly in the correct ratio,
Right.
at the correct time, on the correct stage of the disease,
Right.
they don't have side effects. They have minimalistic side effects.
Right.
But the side effects that happen are not permanent and they're not damaging. They will not damage your kidneys. They will not kill you. They will not make you sick. They may cause a certain irritation. They may cause a gut upset. They may cause extra energy to come in that you will not get sleep, etc., etc. But these are correctable and you make adjustments
Right.
over a period of time,
Right.
and then they get corrected. But they are not harmful side effects that will cause permanent damage to the body.
Right. Right. Okay. On that note, we did diabetes. How would you treat someone with cardiovascular disease?
So cardiovascular disease is a very deep subject. Again, there are several stages to it.
Right.
Testing is the first stage you begin with to start seeing. As I said, everything in functional medicine begins and ends with inflammation. So we measure inflammation markers like interleukin-6 and things like measure HSCRP levels and other. There are so many inflammation markers that we test.
Right.
And once we find that there is a lipoprotein small a, we do a calcium score test, and if there's soft plaque detected in the arterial health, and then we find that there is a chance of a cardiovascular risk happening. So there are 6 markers which are measured for cardiovascular risk.
Right.
And cardiovascular risk does not mean that you will get a cardiovascular incident.
Right.
It just means that you're driving from Delhi to Gurgaon
And it's
on a motorcycle without a helmet at 140 kilometers an hour,
right.
and you might have an accident. If you do, then you can die.
Right.
Yes, but so you assess cardiovascular risk on the basis of where you are at what stage,
Right.
how much at a high risk you are. And it's not, most people just look at cholesterol level, which is actually not the villain. Cholesterol is like
Yeah.
a taxi driver, which does not know who's sitting inside the in the taxi.
Right.
He's just dropping off people, picking up from one place and dropping off to another place. And he does not know who's sitting at the back.
Correct. And cholesterol has its own uses, of course. That's why it's there in the body.
Our brain is 85% cholesterol.
Exactly. And lots of other things like your sex hormones, etc. All of that.
It's male cholesterol.
Correct.
So cardiac risk is measured.
Right.
Stage 1. And stage 2 is if you're not at the risk of getting a cardiovascular incident immediately, then we tend to reduce the inflammation through alpha-lipoic acid, intravenous IV infusions, and through omega-3 infusions.
Right.
That's the way to bring down the inflammation.
Right.
But if you had a cardiovascular event and you had a stent put in your cell, then there are other methods of doing things like ECP and ETT chelation,
Okay.
with which you can clear up the arteries or create collaterals. So clearing up the arteries is not that easy, but you can create collaterals. If there are 5 main arteries in the heart, there are possibilities to create 100 more collaterals. It's like 5 tributaries of a river. The river is flowing, but there are blockages in those 5 or 4 or 3. But if you create 50 more pathways of the water to flow,
Right.
at the same pace and speed, then the water will flow anyway. The blood will flow anyway into the body. You don't need to open up those arteries which are blocked.
Would you categorize that as angiogenesis?
Yes, so angiogenesis is what we are looking at.
Right.
But how to create it?
So we do that with exercise, like you said, HIIT,
Exercise,
other
and as I said, you should
adaptations.
do
Like
ECP.
ECP
is a US FDA approved equipment
right.
with which
Certain powers.
pumps the blood flow into your heart and it creates collaterals.
Right.
And there's other methods, ESMR, the other methods of oxygenation of the blood vessels of the heart.
Right.
You can create ETT chelation pathways in the body,
Right.
which will chelate heavy metals, which we are not really paying attention to. Most modern hospitals and most modern pathology labs don't pay attention to heavy metals.
Right.
Heavy metal toxicity is a very big area,
Right.
and we are not paying attention to it because we are mostly, I would say 80% of my patients who come, we are testing 100% patients for heavy metal toxicity.
Right.
100%. Everybody who walks in has to test for heavy metal toxicity.
How common is that?
As I say, 80% people have heavy metal toxicity.
And what would the heavy metals be?
Mercury, lead, arsenic, barium, aluminium, silver,
What are the individuals who come to you highest?
cadmium because of smoking and because of pollution and because of radial tires and because of all sorts of, and because of fish and because of dental fillings. Most fish today has mercury in it.
Right.
Most fish has, I would say 90% of the fish which is in the top 1 kilometer of the sea,
Right.
and not from deep sea, which is rarely the case. You see all over Goa, Kerala, they are catching fish with trawlers.
Right.
And there are these nets which are in the top layer of the sea,
Right.
which is mostly polluted fish. And that fish is laden with mercury.
Right.
Most dentists still few years ago were filling our teeth with mercury fillings.
Wow.
So 80% of the people who come here, and I see them, I test them, and I find them that they have 100% mercury. I just ask them to go get their dental fillings replaced with ceramic fillings,
Right.
and they find all the symptoms gone.
Wow.
So sometimes as simple as that. So, and aluminium, of course, we are cooking in aluminium utensils. Everybody wants to buy non-stick ware and Teflon coated non-stick ware because they feel that they will use less oil in that.
Yeah.
But the base of that is aluminium. Aluminium pressure cookers, aluminium foil. All airlines serve food in aluminium containers.
Right.
We charcoal in aluminium containers. Aluminium cans of soft drinks, cokes, everything is aluminium all around us. All medicines in the whole modern world are coming in aluminium foil.
Right.
So we are using aluminium foil everywhere.
Right.
And that is a very big toxic and carcinogenic substance that is coming to our bodies.
Right.
A lot of people are infested with high aluminium, besides cadmium coming from the air. 10 years ago, when there were no radial tires, there was very little cadmium also found in patients.
Right.
Today, all radial tires are using cadmium in the production.
Right.
And when the tires get worn out on the roads, they leave cadmium on the road and the cadmium rises up at the end, they're breathing it in.
Right.
So finding a lot of people with toxic cadmium.
So basically the FDA has approved it.
Indian FDA and others FDA.
I think the US FDA.
Approved what?
that you can use chelation therapy for?
Yes, so chelation therapy, there's a trial that was done called the TAC trial.
Right.
And then many trials have been done. There have been about 4,000 studies actually,
Right.
which have been done.
Right.
And scientific papers published on EDTA.
Right.
EDTA, chelation therapy is nothing but, it comes from a Latin word called chelate, which means to chop off.
Right.
So it binds itself, this chemical binds itself to the heavy metals,
Right.
and it chops them off, and you can eliminate it through your kidneys and through the urine.
So the FDA approves it for confirmed
For
toxicity.
lead toxicity, yes.
For lead and mercury, I don't know.
For mercury, there are other methods of doing it.
Right. So you're saying that you use it for in general?
No, we again, depending on what heavy metal you have,
Right.
we use infrared sauna,
Right.
activated charcoal,
Right.
zeolite.
Right.
There's other methods. There's a heavy metal detox tablet which contains all these chelation materials.
Right.
Oral EDTA,
Right.
EDTA suppositories which are given in the anus,
Right.
EDTA chelation, IV therapies. There could be a bunch of combinations of these therapies which are used depending on which heavy metal is in the body.
Right. Right. Understood. So coming back to cardiovascular disease, you spoke about the
Reducing inflammation.
reducing inflammation.
They're giving IV therapies of ALAs and L-carnitine and also of omega-3.
All of that to reduce
That
inflammation.
depending on if you've not had a cardiac incident so far,
Right.
you can attempt to clear that out. But if you have high calcium scores, then you have to find a way to maintain those at a low, and you have to bring it down to zero. Calcium score needs to be zero.
Right.
Calcium score is what
Is what
actually
causes the plaque.
this thing. Everything is not just about blockade. There could be other cardiovascular incidents which can happen because of hypertension and because of others. It's not just that you have a blockage in the heart that you will get a cardiac incident.
It could be because of blood clot or something.
Yeah. So because of other things. Nowadays you have a myocardial infarction because of COVID vaccine.
Right.
So people are coming. A lot of people are coming with sudden cardiac incidents happening
Right.
as a result of the vaccination.
Right.
And there's a lot of controversy in that. I mean, I can't go to comment on what's really causing it because still it's being investigated and researched.
Yeah.
It's happening. But the incidence of cardiac incidents happening to younger people and sudden deaths happening has gone up tremendously after COVID.
Vaccine.
So what do you attach that to? What is the cause of it? Is still being investigated. So it doesn't you all know about.
There could be a correlation, and they're coming up.
There is a correlation that nobody's
Okay.
saying it.
Okay. What would you say about hypertension?
Again, hypertension is an inflammatory disorder. It comes from inflammation. It's like a tree. Everything in functional medicine is boils down to a universality of the disease,
Right.
and universality of the cause of the disease.
Right.
And the cause of the disease is cell inflammation. The cell inflammation is if I were to use an analogy, it's the trunk of the tree.
Right.
And under the tree, then once you have the trees planted
Right.
and there's inflammation, the leaves can grow in any direction.
Right.
Depending on the rate, depending on the environment,
Right.
depending on the air, the sunlight, the tree will flourish in any direction.
Right.
And that direction can be gynecology, obstetrics, cardiology, cancer,
Degenerative.
hypertension,
Right.
go on in any direction.
Correct.
But the root cause is below the trunk.
Right.
Their roots are below. So you treat the root,
Right.
not the leaves.
Correct. Now, touching upon the topic of intermittent fasting, there's obviously a lot of people recommending it, etc. All of that, and you just previously said that there's no said, let's say, hours of fasting, and you personalize it for people. But let's say if an average individual wants to, experiment with it, what are the key things that they should first analyze about themselves before hopping onto something?
So fasting has been a part of our DNA from the beginning of times. Not just Indians, but humanity, the human race itself.
If food wasn't readily available.
Food was not available, it was scarce. People would sleep just after sunset,
Right.
after having their early dinner, 6-7 o'clock.
Right.
Within 1 hour of sunset, they would eat.
Right.
There would be a fire lit in the village
Right.
or the community. And then you go to sleep. When you get up in the morning, you start hunting for food.
Right.
Either you're hunter-gatherers or you are, looking at trees to break vegetables and or fruits or whatever.
Right.
And then you come back and your wife will cook for you, or the community will cook for you.
Right.
And you typically get lunch at around 1 o'clock.
Right.
So nobody ate before that time. So this is our DNA, which we can't change.
Right.
Mr. Kellogg's introduced the concept of breakfast in America, and the whole world started having breakfast. So the whole concept of this breakfast was never existent in one race.
Okay.
We have tampered with that whole system and broken into it. And therefore, that's why we are disturbed in our circadian rhythms.
Right.
And that is why our biology and physiology has been disturbed. So, fasting, therefore, just to answer your question, fasting is a part of our DNA and it should be done. Now, coming to the question of intermittent fasting, yes, the gut needs rest. Even in Ayurveda, if you see the text, everything originates of the gut.
Right.
So the gut, if you eat every 2 hours, you're not giving rest to the gut.
Right.
Concept of eating every hour or 2 hours is not a healthy idea to follow. You give your gut rest. Each person rest period depends upon when he enters autophagy. So we do certain number of tests to understand when your body is entered into autophagy, when your body has gone into ketosis, for example. So even to measure autophagy, there are certain tests that are done.
Right.
And those tests are specific tests to measure that your body is gone into autophagy. Autophagy is where you start to burn fat.
Right.
And to get your energy.
And also eat away harmful proteins and substances, etc. So are these tests readily available?
Yeah, the tests are available. There are tests which they are heat shock protein tests, and there are NC32 tests, and there are ATGS tests which are testing for autophagy. These tests are now readily available in labs, and you are able to measure that the body is gone to autophagy. When the body is gone to autophagy, you decide whether this person needs 12 hours fasting or 14 hours fasting. But fasting, yes, everybody needs it. So answer to that question is yes, everybody needs it.
Everybody needs it. Just to touch upon a similar question that always sort of confused me. If you say that it has been a part of our DNA and lifespan overall has improved because of certain, let's say, modern medicine interventions, like obviously penicillin, etc., all of that, the invention of those. So now that humans are at the peak of their, let's say, when it comes to their lifespan, you have average deaths at a much higher age as compared to earlier. So how do we correlate the fact that that was what is appropriate and this is what is not?
So lifespan has increased, yes, but health span has not.
Right.
So what's happening is that let's say we live up to 80 or 90. So the graph, if you see the graph of now the times today, you go from 0 to 25, you're getting healthier and better and better.
Right.
That's where your body is at the peak.
Right.
And then from 25, it's a downhill slope.
Right.
Yes. In some cases, the progression is slow. In some cases, like you said, 30, 31-year-olds are coming to me with depression and with their... I'm treating now 4 or 5 people in the last 1 month or 30 years of age who are taking 12 to 15 antidepressants a day.
Right.
So the graph comes down and the lifespan will be increased, but the graph of quality of life or the health span will start falling from the day you have inflammation in the body.
Right.
And from the age of 30, 31 downwards, you can be living up to 80.
Right.
But whether you are living with 10, 20 pills a day
right.
or 0 pills a day is what matters. What we are trying to say is that if you change the quality of your life and change the quality of the inputs that you're giving to your life,
right.
the health span will stay like that till 80 or 90, and then you start falling.
You'll have
instead of falling at 30 and
right.
down like that.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned it, because we at Odds Fitness, and when we made the company with all our advisors and everyone, our vision was to have improved health span for everyone. And India as a country is, how do you say, there's a lot of awareness that is coming about, but we have just recently come out of the scarcity culture because of the partition and everything and the British rule and everything. So our focus and our insecurities, which have been attached to our grandfathers, etc., all of that, are usually the scarcity of resource. And that sort of has become the purpose of many. So people are willing to, sacrifice a lot of health things which might maybe help them in terms of exercise. They might not spend in terms of the diet or the training, or they might spend on business and 10 times more, and they will sleep less. And those are probably this, that's the spill of the insecurity that comes. But I see that changing. I see a lot of that changing. Some of it good, some of it bad. And like you said, there's a lot of mental health concerns. I'm also observing there is a lack of sense of purpose in a lot of kids who have been, let's say, been over provided for, and they don't know where they stand, what their identity is, what their self-efficacy is about. So I think a good mix of both is where you need a purpose, a sense of fulfillment, also a strong sense of identity, while knowing that, okay, things are not that scarce anymore. India is doing great and you will be fine, And so
I think it's the opposite of scarcity. Today we are passing through a phase of excess.
Yeah.
So people are eating excess food. We are over consuming.
Right.
And food is given too much importance.
Right. Because it comes from the scarcity mindset.
There's a lot more we're eating that we can eat.
And interestingly that you said it, very recently I went to somebody's home and I said, "Do you have something to eat?" at an off hour. And so हमारे घर में तो सारे टाइम ही होता है, कभी हमारा प्लेट खाली नहीं होता. And I was like, okay, that's not the answer I was looking for, but I'll have a salad. So, yeah, okay. Would you say intermittent fasting would be ideal for somebody with increased energy demands?
Yes.
Right.
Because in that period of fasting, you eat fat, you drink fat. I have 4 or 5 tablespoons of MCT oil in the morning during the time of fasting, and I get increased energy.
Medium chain triglycerides.
Yeah.
Right.
So and I get increased energy in that period of time. My mind becomes twice as fast, twice as alert.
Right.
I'm able to play better golf and able to play better concentration.
Right.
And I don't feel tired at all.
Right.
So at 2 o'clock is a time to eat. And 2 to 8 is my window to eat. So I usually eat at that time. But during the fasting hours, the energy demand is more. And you've seen that demand with the fat that you compensate with.
What would you say for somebody who has more, let's say, anaerobic, demands several times a day? Let's say somebody who's, training twice a day or something.
And then you increase your protein content, decrease carbohydrates, increase protein to 50%, fat to 40%,
right?
Carbs 10%.
Right.
And that also should be complex carbs.
Right.
But then they can meet the demand of...
Because they'll need the glycogen in the muscles. And if they ever need it, the proteins are always there for gluconeogenesis.
Okay, so in my book, which a lot of people ask me about, they say that if you don't put read this 500 pages, what is that one word that we can take away from this? And I always talk about movement. If the MOVE, just take these 4 words away,
right.
Keep moving. However, this is a very loose word. And since you are in the business of movement and exercise and management of the body in terms of posture, in terms of breathing, I want you to know how much importance are you paying to training people in posture management and in the right breathing, because breathing also determines how your posture is, and breathing also determines how your health will be, and breathing also determines how your lung health will be, which will determine how your upper back will be, because if your lungs are not, if your diaphragm is not moving correctly, you will not have upper back room at all. What kind of focus are you putting in your company?
So when we talk about breathing, right, we're largely focusing on how to regulate your nervous system. And, even when it comes to exercise, of course, having, let's say, structured breathing with every rep, that is also done so that you do not go gasping and you do not go into flight and fright suddenly, and you also remain calm. So when it comes to posture, whether it's the Valsalva maneuver for lifting really heavy weights, etc., all of that, keeping all of that aside, and we are talking about just individuals who are lifestyle related, what we tend to do is to have like a patternogenic, let's say, structure to your training, etc., all of that. And what that allows you to do is it keeps you away from the struggle of, let's say, improper ventilation, and it keeps you properly ventilated, and it's sending a signal to your brain that you're safe, you're fine, and all you're doing is focusing on the lift itself. And all your faculties are actually within that lift of training, etc. All that. Having said that, you just talked about movement, and I would also want to stress about the fact that we do not restrict ourselves to just movement. We have a lot of stress on strength training, because when you deal with something like muscle, it's essentially the capital reserve of your body. Prevents sarcopenia, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, everything. And that's the, let's say, cornerstone, or let's say where Odds Fitness sort of began from, where we wanted to stress upon strength training and its benefits. And people tend to overlook it. They go for a stroll, etc. All of that. Even when it comes to cardiovascular exercises, we want people to have a paternogenic sort of breathing, because that makes sure that you are breathing deeply till the bottom of your lungs. And at the same time, it essentially makes you utilize oxygen more efficiently, so to speak. And what happens that way is, your body is sort of optimized for that exercise. You can go longer, you can do it better. Thereby, it leads to cascading effects of increased VO2 and, better mitochondrial health, etc. All that.
So to improve mitochondrial health, because mitochondrial health is very important for muscle building, because until you have ATP production in the body, you will not get mitochondrial health.
Right.
And do you insist upon certain foods and diets and supplements to increase mitochondrial?
So we tend to keep away from, let's say, the supplement space. We leave it to experts such as you. But still, if somebody, stresses upon it, do touch upon it. But coming back to, let's say, exercise, so to speak, for me to tell somebody to improve their mitochondrial health, I would clearly tell them that your stroll in the park or your casual training on the treadmill or the cross trainer is not going to help. You have to be training in zone 2 and above.
To improve mitochondrial health, do you also, what is your view on ice baths?
I think ice baths are a controversial space, because one of the key, let's say, signals that you can send to your body is inflammation when you want to increase muscle mass. So if you immerse yourself in an ice bath right after, let's say, a grueling strength training session, you're essentially blocking one essential aspect which leads to significant muscle growth. And we tend not to recommend it. We want that inflammation to remain, so that in response to that, you have that adaptation, you have increased muscle mass, etc., and so on and so forth. But yes, you performance state, you have a marathon, or you've got a triathlon athlete or cross country or something, it will help settle down inflammation and allow you to move one step further.
That's very good.
Thank you so much for coming here, Doctor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very nice.